This is video 14 of Advaita Vedanta non-dualism, non-dual monism as taught by Sri Ramana Maharshi. We will look at Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam. The way to go about studying Advaita Vedanta is first Shravanam. Shravanam means hearing the truth. Maybe those days, 5,000 years ago, when there was no writing method, people practiced all learning only through word of mouth and hearing. And today it would mean studying or watching YouTube videos or etc. So study of the truth. Sri Bhagavan says, you have to study the subject again and again till you get perfect knowledge of the subject. Here the subject is who we are, what is Brahman, what is our true nature. So, how much should we study? As much as you need, I need, she needs. It all depends on the person. Then Mananam. Mananam is reflecting over the truth that we have studied, thinking about it, clearing doubts. Why did the sages say so? Why did they say one only exists? When we live in a world of multiplicity, when we see so much of differences, how come they say that one only exists? Brahman alone exists. And that is what you are, I am, and everyone is. How? So, when we do this kind of investigation into our own self, we will move towards truth. And Nididhyasanam is finally settling down and abiding in who we are. If we look at Ramana Bhagavan's teachings and when we narrow down our focus to the mechanism involved in the process of realization as found in his teachings, we will get a grand monotony. He says in 4 places, as far as my knowledge goes, it could be in more places, he describes the mechanism in 4 places. There is this Vichara Sangraham, a prose text in which he says, if we lay down the body, the corpse-like body like a corpse, and without even uttering the word I, if we question to ourselves, which is it that is arising as this I? If we investigate, there will arise without sound, without noise, a kind of I illumination, which he calls Spuranam. When the mind subsides through Vicharam, the I will come to your experience. But we should not take it as a bodily experience, he says. And it is a kind of pulsation, which I've been experiencing for the last 1 year. And Sri Bhagavan says, fix your attention on Spuranam and do not let go of the idea of its ultimate character. So the point here is, instead of getting distracted by thoughts, we have to fix our attention once that Spuranam arises. How will Spuranam arise? Through Vicharam. When we seek the source of I thought, Bhagavan says the self does its job automatically. That is true. You don't have to create Spuranam or that I experience. When I say I, it is the merger of the individual I with the universal I. That is what it signifies. Experientially, how does it come to us? In the form of Spuranam, a kind of palpable sensation, but which is not divided, which is undivided, which is one. Because there is no variety in that experience. It is just monotonous I. And if we stick to it, when he says, Bhagavan says, if that Spuranam is automatic it is realization, he says. And he also says it is in between the ego and the self. Maybe we are moving towards our original nature at that stage. And if we fix our attention on that Spuranam, he says the Spuranam itself will burn the bodily sense of I, and it will burn itself like a camphor set to fire. And he says this is called liberation or moksham by the sages and the scriptures. In the second place, what is called Ulladu Narpadu, which is verses on reality, 40 verses on reality. In one of the verses he says, if we turn inward by asking who am I, the I thought will topple down, and in that very same place, of its own accord, a kind of I self-illumination will happen. And he says it is not the ego, that I pulsation is not bodily sensation. He says it is perfection itself. It is Atma itself or Brahman itself. Thirdly, there is what is called Upadesa Saram. Again, it is a small book with 30 verses. In that also he says, if we seek the source, if you seek the place from where this I thought arises, he says your I thought will topple down, the ego will topple down, the I am the body sense will topple down. And again in another song which follows, he says, in the very same place where the mind subsides, another I will be experienced. Of its own accord, it will come to your experience. And he says that is perfection. And the fourth one I have learnt is what is called Atma Vidya Kirtanam. In one of the songs, again he says, all the thoughts gather into one fiber. The thoughts say, I am this fleshly body. And such thoughts, many thoughts, they twine themselves together and form one ego, that I am this fleshly body. And if you inquire, who am I, which is the place of birth of this I thought, he says, from the heart of its own accord, the Atma shines forth. And he says that shining is the great silence, Mauna. And it is the unexpanded and infinite self. And it is the source of bliss. So, as far as I am concerned, as an individual who studied Sri Ramana Maharshi's teachings, I tried to understand what is it he is saying, what is the mechanism involved in the whole process of realization. I wanted to know that. See, because too much of learning also becomes a hurdle. And we need to, among the learnings, we need to cull out what is relevant, what is needed, what is it that will help me to practice sadhana, which is the path. What is the way to go about? Because otherwise it looks to be a jungle and where we are blindfolded. First of all, getting lost in the jungle itself is a difficult situation. And there if you are blindfolded, we are gone. So with that in mind, I wanted to help myself and I am still doing it. I am studying it. And what I am given to understand is that Vicharam, as Bhagavan says, is the most direct path without any intermediate steps. He says direct attack, go for it straight away. We all have the common experience of entertaining thoughts. And whenever thought arises, he says, do not complete a thought. Don't build upon the thought. He says, go to the source of the thought by inquiring, who am I? Who is experiencing this thought? We'll say I. What is that I? Which is the birthplace of this I? Which is the source of this I? Or what is it that appears as this I? We can only do this much. He says, you just inquire and abide in the source of the I thought. Sri Bhagavan says, this is what you can do. Beyond this, he says, you are helpless. And after that, he says, the beyond will take care of itself, which means our higher nature, a Brahman, will take care of itself. It might sound like a dualism, but here is where the small I merges into the big I, Brahman, Chaitanyam, existence, consciousness, bliss. And from the study of the talks book, that big book, 650 pages, I culled out this message also. Practice is necessary up to the state of realization. And Sri Bhagavan assures there is no need for anxiety. He says everything will come all right in the end. So he has spoken about persistence. He has spoken about steady determination. So without giving up, we need to find out who we are. See, in the spiritual process, we are not doing something optional. We are doing something very fundamental, because we live with this I thought, right? I. We say maybe about 20, 25 times, 30 times in a day, we might say I. But what is the import of that I? What is the meaning of that I? Is that I restricted only to this bodily sense? What is the truth? This is what spirituality is all about. That pure awareness, when juxtaposed to a upadhi, it fools itself. It hypnotizes itself into thinking that it is the body. This is the mechanism. As we saw, there is a pure lake and there is a forest next to it. The reflection falls on the water mistakes itself to be the reflection. This is the hypnotization and dehypnotization mechanism Swami Vivekananda talks about. Sri Bhagavan straight away says, you have to give up the wrong notion that I am the body. Simple. Does it mean that the body will fall dead or that we will not feed the body? No. As we saw earlier, when we realize ourselves, we will experience our true nature to be the bright shining sun, and the mind will be like a burnt rope or a pale disk of the moon found on the daytime sky. This is the truth. So, if not in this birth, we have to one day or other come to this Advaita Vedanta, which says Tattvamasi, that thou art. When? Already and always. See the beauty of the words of the sages. They said, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. That's all. They did not add a comma, a quotation, a hyphen, and here they did not say, you are Brahman if you do sadhana. No, they did not say. You are Brahman when? Tomorrow onwards. No. They simply point to the fact that thou art. And spirituality is about constant truth. That we are fundamentally pure awareness, pure existence, pure consciousness, in which, and we are that pure screen, awareness screen, in which the movie of this individual called Sentivel is playing. He is the dreamer, the mind, ego is the dreamer, the waker and the deep sleeper. The cycle goes on and on and on. Let us think about it.